Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Dragon Ball Z, apparently, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Andy Potter, and today I'm joined by Alex Bonilla.
Hola.
And John McKenna.
Hi, everybody.
So today we're going to be talking about the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, which came out, I think, like 2 months ago, in Japan. It came over here really quick to America. And we're going to be talking about it here, but before we get into it, you can find everything about this podcast at overlyanimated.com, and you can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes, or on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. So yeah, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different than we usually do. I'd say we usually cover more progressive shows than this, but this is just a stupid toxic masculinity fight anime movie. And I am the one who brought this up. I watched this movie. I really liked the movie. So I just found some people who wanted to watch it with me, and we're going to talk about it now. Not much more than that. So yeah, but before we really dive into the movie and what we liked, what we didn't like, I wanted to ask my co-hosts what their experience with Dragon Ball in general is, so we have an idea of how that affects how they viewed the movie. So let's start with you, Alex. What's your history with Dragon Ball? Have you seen any of it even?
Barely. I've seen memes. I think that's how most shows are consumed these days. You're first exposed to them through like random images you stumble across on the internet. You're like, where does that come from? Oh, that anime. Okay. No, but yeah, like Dragon Ball Z is over 9,000. Like that's about it. Also, now that as a sports fan, I've also begun noticing that some athletes have become more open about their liking to anime. So, for example, in the NFL, there are now like Juju Smith-Schuster did like a Dragon Ball Z celebration dance this season.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid has been seen watching Dragon Ball GT before games to like relax. So like even watching sports, you get the sense of how big Dragon Ball Z is to a certain audience. And so I for whatever reason, I've just never gotten. Well, I mean, anime in general, I've avoided for a long time. It's not until like basically in the past year that I finally begun opening myself up to that genre. So yeah, so this was another new door that I'm opening to myself. Well, what is Dragon Ball Z? Let's find out.
Okay, so we'll get. I'll ask you. We'll see how this new experience was for you in a minute. But I just want to get John's history with Dragon Ball now. What is your history with this show?
I'm surprised Alex didn't mention the 12-foot tall tifo of Goku they had at a soccer game in France, along with the sports references too. But yeah, my history with Dragon Ball Z was that when I was a wee lad in the 2000s. Back in the days when Toonami was airing in the middle of the afternoon on weekdays on Cartoon Network rather than on Saturday nights, or in addition to Saturday nights, I keep forgetting because I was in bed by then, Dragon Ball Z was the one show me and my friends would all watch. And did we know much about it? Not really. I know I had one friend who would have the comics out. He'd have the Shonen Jump comics. He'd be reading to us. He'd be explaining, okay, so this is this character. This is that character. This character doesn't like that character. They blew up the world. Now everything's back together. Goku's still alive now. He was dead then. And by that point, I was just going over my head because all I liked was punchy, punchy, boom, boom, sparky, sparky, bang, bang. Which, thankfully, Dragon Ball Z Broly is. And
yeah.
So I kind of got off it a little bit. Like, I've only seen, I think a couple episodes of Super. I saw a few more episodes after I saw the movie just to get myself clear on what the underpinning theology was of this movie. And, I have to admit, there's some things I'm kind of glad stayed the same. Because DBZ was such a guilty pleasure for me back then. It's a very simple pleasure, and it still is today. I forgot how much I enjoyed just sitting down and seeing two big burly men fight each other. And this delivered on all fronts. It was DBZ that I remember. It'll be the DBC long after we're gone and they're making season 25 bajillion. So this for me was very enjoyable. It's what I remember. It was a fun little nostalgia trip.
That's awesome. Yeah, for me, I think I was a little bit more exposed to it than you were, John. I definitely had a very similar experience where I saw a couple episodes here and there as a kid, like on Toonami or Adult Swim, and then as I grew up, I would seek it out a little bit more. I was exposed to it through the abridged series and stuff. That's a big avenue for me.
Team 4-Star.
I'm gonna try to keep that to a minimum, mentioning Team 4-Star, but that's a big part of my Like, that's a big part of my understanding of Dragon Ball Z now, just, like, that is a big part of the community. But in general, like, I have a general knowledge of, like, everything that's happened in Dragon Ball Z just because I really like stupid fight shows, and I don't really get to talk about that a lot on our podcast, but I really like stupid fight animes, and Dragon Ball Z is, like, the epitome of that. And, yeah, so I think I just want to get your general experience here. I think, John, you said this was a great nostalgia trip. Alex, I learned something absolutely shocking about you on the Genlock pod this week, and it's that you hate fight scenes. So, with that said, this movie, for listeners who have not seen this movie, again, there's not really spoilers here, it's a Dragon Ball movie. If you're listening to this, it's a Dragon Ball movie. There's not really spoilers. Just so you know, there's a 40-minute fight scene in this movie. That is not an exaggeration. There's a point in the movie where the heroes meet the villains, the fight starts and does not stop for 40 more minutes. So, Alex, how did you like this movie?
I kind of liked it a lot more than I was expecting. Because, look, I mean, you characterize me as hating fight scenes. I don't think that's totally accurate. I say that I have a weird bar when it comes to fight scenes because, just using an example of shows we cover here in Overly Animated, like Steven Universe, I generally enjoy those fight sequences, even though people are usually like, oh, those are dumb or like those are like boring. But I enjoy those, whereas like the over-the-top anime fights, such as like ones that are Ruby or Genlock, they tend to bore me. But in this movie, the fights are actually very interestingly animated.
Yeah.
And also, I will say, like, a Dragon Ball, I know, has a reputation for being dumb anime fight, but limited to this movie, the setup is very interesting and captivating. So by the time you get to the fight, you're invested in both sides. Like, Broly is a quote antagonist, but the movie does a good job of making you feel things for him before you get to that point, and that helps the fight to feel a much higher stakes than some other shows have done. And so the combination of both sides of the fight being interesting, there is a smattering of quips that get thrown in the middle of the fight. There is interesting animation choices being made. There's lots of different uses of color, and the climax is incredible. Like, it gets to a point where it breaks reality. Almost reminding me of like Spider-Verse, which is like, why would I go into an anime expecting to be reminded of the Spider-Verse? But here you go. So, like, all in all, I think that this is that if you wanted to introduce someone to Dragon Ball with this, I think that you're setting a really high bar, because honestly, I think that from beginning to end, this is a very serviceable, if not very entertaining piece of cinema.
I think you completely encapsulated why I really like this movie, Alex, because, like, I watched it expecting, like, bare minimum, and then all those things you mentioned popped out to me, like Broly's backstory, this really beautiful animation, and by beautiful I mean, like, just really colorful. Like, I'm talking, like, Coco Pixar colorful. There's, like, they just throw colors at you randomly, and it's just really fun. And just some interesting animation choices, and I finished the movie, and I'm like, was that just a good movie? Like, bar none?
I think it was.
All right.
Did you not like the movie, John? Is that what that noise was?
Oh no, I liked it, but for me, it's like, this is a good Dragon Ball Z movie. I haven't quite tried to figure out whether or not this is a good movie in general, though, because again, you mentioned it's a 40-minute fight. There is a 40-minute fight scene. The runtime is like, what, 110 minutes, 120 tops. So 1/3 of the movie is a fight scene. Under normal circumstances, I would be sort of not happy about that if this was any other movie at all. But for me, it's because I'm going in. I think for me, just because I knew I was going into a Dragon Ball Z movie, and I knew what Dragon Ball Z was. I knew what I was getting myself into. For me, as I sort of dropped my normal movie goggles on and just put on my DBZ goggles and just judged it on that. I haven't quite yet compared it to anything else yet.
But I think
because another thing here, like you mentioned, that you would be disappointed in a normal movie if it's a 40-minute fight scene. But I think that you can execute a fight scene well enough that this movie, I think, managed to do a rare feat of maintaining momentum throughout. But also, like, I don't know, like we're using the 40-minute thing, but there is actually a break in the middle where we go to like them going with Piccolo to do fusion dance. So I think that helps too, that it isn't actually totally continuous. Like there is a brief lull, and so we can like gather ourselves back for the climax of the movie. And I think that helps a lot. And like the pacing works out, and combined with all the animation stuff, it helps the fight scene, even in terms of length, to not feel like drudgery compared to maybe some other animes that may feel that way to you. But also I think about things like the Marvel movies, right? Like those are like half of them are fight sequences, but they're split up between different characters, whereas this is like one big fight scene between the same characters. But like those ones also, you get the problem of sometimes the villains don't have enough weight behind them for you to care about dedicating 15 minutes of your time watching them fight the heroes. Whereas this one, I think, does the job well. So I guess that I'm just kind of pushing back on the idea that a length of a fight sequence is enough to be make it less of a movie. I think that if you're able to do a fight sequence well and you can stretch it out while keeping the people excited and still having it be meaningful to the story, then go for it. Like I think that makes it very impressive of a movie.
I think that's fair. I think I was just more commenting on just how much of the movie was one fight scene, but you are right. They did break it up, and I actually liked when they broke it up with the Piccolo scene. For me, it's just like I like fight scenes that have a lot of like, build up, plot, character, and then it culminated in the fight scene. It's like, and it's the punctuation mark in a movie rather than just the movie.
And I get that. I get both those complaints, but the interesting thing for me here is, Alex, you're bringing up every talking point I was going to bring up, and I'm stunned by that. Because, like, you're completely in my corner here for this movie, Alex, and I was not expecting that coming into this, because I was going to bring up Infinity War and say that Broly is essentially Thanos in this movie. Like, this is just a Broly movie. Like, he's the main character of this movie, and we follow him the whole time. So when we get to him fighting the quote-unquote heroes, he feels like the guy we care about most in the fight scene. It's really interesting. And it makes you care.
Thanos' backstory in Infinity War is limited to him being like, yeah, I lived on a planet, it sucked, and that was it. But like here we actually see him growing up, and then we still get him telling the story to people too. So it's like it does a lot more with so much less time. It's crazy.
It's very impressive.
Marvel movies can't do that.
And then even better than that, I think, is that they don't give us that early Broly fight scene. They don't give us a fight, like, Thanos fights people early in the movie in Infinity War. Broly doesn't. So, like, they just kind of saved all of that for the end. And it kind of just works really well that way because the whole movie, you're just like, going in that Broly's gonna be really strong. Like, just for me, a DBZ viewer, I know who Broly is. John, I assume you knew who Broly was before you watched the movie.
I did some research on him.
So like, and the intro sets up like, hey, we're afraid of this kid. He seems to be very strong. We should send him away. And it's like that sets up stakes already. Like it dives in very quickly, even for an intro viewer.
And it just shockingly, I think, builds up tension, like how strong is he actually going to be? And I think they really build up to it really well in that moment where he's beating up the heroes constantly for like maybe 20 to 25 minutes of those 40 minutes is just him beating them down. And it's really, really fun, even though it's just really dumb fighting. And I guess we can get a little more specific here because we've just been kind of talking around this fight. Maybe we should start with the fight scene then, because we've been talking about it pretty much this whole time already. So this fight scene starts with Broly getting off of Frieza's ship, who is Frieza's pretty much not a character in this movie. He has a couple of funny lines, but he's just kind of there. And Broly shows up, and we immediately get a fight with Vegeta, which is kind of like this crazy aerial fight all over the place. And then we get a fight with Broly and Goku, which is a little bit in the air, and has some interesting animation in it, which I want to talk about. And then they fight on the ground, like on this icy patch of ground. And then after that, we get a fight where they fight together, and then they do the fusion dance, and then we get the fight with Gogeta versus Broly. And all three of these feel like completely different fights, even though they're kind of separated by almost no time at all. But they have these moments where like Goku prepares to fight Broly, and they kind of like you simultaneously get a chance to take a breath and a chance to get really hyped up again. Like, it's really well done. Like, the music really supports all of that. Was there of these three fights that I mentioned, was there anyone that like jumped out to you like as more fun than the others, either animation wise or just in general fun wise, John?
For me, I think it was the part of the fight. I'm trying to remember who it was. It's when they went through the core of the Earth.
I think that was the end of the Goku. I think Goku went down there to the Earth, and then a little bit of Gogeta went down into the Earth as well.
Goku, I thought that was incredible, just because like it starts. You're starting off in maybe just because of the contrasted colors and the contrast of landscapes, because you're starting off in what is essentially the Arctic, because they're trying to find the last Dragon Ball, because Bulma wants to be. Was it younger or?
Yeah, 5 years younger,
yeah. Oh.
which was. Whatever. I think that joke worked a lot better from Frieza's perspective.
Yeah, it did.
I think his joke was the payoff for that was a lot better for him saying you want to be 5 centimeters taller.
It's like Bulma's was the stupidest thing to use a Dragon Ball for until Frieza mentioned what he wants to use it for, which I loved. But yeah, when they were going down through the core, they're at the Arctic, and then they go to the Earth's core. I love just the sharp contrast in colors, the sharp contrast in landscapes, and the fact that they are swimming in the middle of the Earth and they're still fighting. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because when you're watching, you put in this grand scale, these guys are freaking huge and they're freaking strong and they're crazy. And it looks like there's just this manic fight. They're hitting each other. It felt chaotic. It was, you could see like the lava bubbles going around all over the place. You realize they're in the middle of the Earth. They don't bother about the temperature. They're not burning to a crisp. They're just going at it. Yeah. And I thought that was the coolest, so cool.
Yeah, I agree. That section was like really beautiful. Like the red of the lava really stands out after you have the whole, like this whole fight scene takes place on this like almost white background the whole time. And then they just kind of shock you with this like red. It's really interesting and cool. Alex, was there a part of this fight or one of these 3 fights you more gravitated towards liking?
I think John mentioned like the most interesting part where we switch from the ice to the dark lava place, and then like I think in the middle of that is also where you start seeing like flashes of color all over the place, as if we're taking to like a different dimension sort of. I think that Gogeta says like, what's going on here? Something along those lines.
Even the characters in the movie are commenting on like how wild everything is in the movie. It's really really funny.
I think that's the highlight, and in part because like we've been fighting for a long time, and so like just switching the setting like also helps along that. But also like even in the beginning when you're still on the ice continent, like for example, I forget if it's Vegeta doing it to Broly or Broly doing it to Vegeta, but like somebody gets like punched through multiple mountains.
Yeah,
that's
pretty just Dragon Ball.
Also, this is my first. I know that when they become Saiyans, they like change their hair color, but I like Goku doing it several times. Like first he becomes like green haired, and then like red haired, and there's blue hair. But, like it feels like the power level just keeps rising.
Oh yeah, Alex.
So like I know I sound like a noob just like geeking out over it, but like it kind of felt pretty cool. So
you had no idea what these power ups were, but you were still excited about them.
Well, like it's like the colors, like they were pretty cool. And it's in the middle of that, like Broly activates his own power. He shoots like a green power ball out of his mouth. Like it's like
Alex, I am totally in love with you just like liking this movie for like I am really liking it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was most impressed by the beginning part of it between Broly and Vegeta because I guess this is my first exposure to Dragon Ball style of fighting. And so, yeah, just a lot of like over the top moves that I didn't expect to see. And they somehow keep making them more over the top to the point of getting them underground. I think there's also at one point, I think this is by the time they get to Goku, where like Broly just begins acting like the Hulk and knocks Goku around back and forth.
Oh yeah, they definitely
like Hulk knocking Thor around.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, that move was very like, oh, I've seen this move before, but it's funny here, like in the middle of this like epic fight, like they're just adding like extra funny moves too. So
yeah,
I do have one question though. It's because when I knew the colors were coming because of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. They had the giant Goku balloon, and Al Roker explained it to me. But I have a question then. I always thought that when they went Super Saiyan, it was more like Goku's hair would stay gold, but it would just like grow and grow. When did they make the shift?
Okay, I will give an explanation for you, and for the listeners yelling, I will explain that Yes,
Oh
I know
no,
what this is.
I just incurred the wrath of somebody.
Oh, no, it's fine, John. I'm glad you brought up this question so I can explain the intricacies of Dragon Ball Z.
But do I want to know the intricacies? Question.
It's not, you do, Alex, because it's even more absurd than you can imagine. I think you will enjoy that. So when their hair goes gold or green, I think Broly's is more green than gold, but Goku's is more gold. That's him going Super Saiyan. Okay, Alex?
Right.
He's going Super Saiyan, and he's just getting stronger. That's all it means. When the hair goes red, that is them going Super Saiyan God. So they are.
That's the next level, right?
That's actually like 2 or 3 levels. They skipped over Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 3. Those weren't really in the movie. But you don't have to worry about that. Because they went straight to Super Saiyan God. And then the blue hair, Alex, is Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. I am not exaggerating. That is actually what they call it. But they just call it Super Saiyan Blue to shorten it in the show.
It was a real tier 15 situation.
Yeah, the reason for this, Alex, is that every single season they need to be stronger than the last one.
Right.
Training.
See, and this is where watching it as a movie is much more helpful, because I can't imagine how frustrating that is watching like season 12 or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, they're adding another power.
Yeah, no.
Good job. But like in the movie, it like happens so fast that you're just like, okay, let's just roll with it.
Like, I think you experienced DBZ in its purest form, Alex. I'm not even kidding. I think you've experienced, I don't even think you need to watch anymore, because you have to sit.
I mean, that was my immediate thought. It was like, wow, this was great. I don't think I'd watch a full show of this.
Yeah.
But like, it condensed into this, it seems fine.
How could you go back to episode 1 when they're not even like going gold at all? Like, they don't, Alex, they don't introduce like Super Saiyan. They don't introduce the gold one until like episode like 60 or something. I forget the exact number, but it's not until they fight the first like big villain that they get Super Saiyan. Like, it's insane.
There's another part of these fight scenes. I think it's the music is hype worthy. Like,
yes,
if you say it out loud, like it's just in the middle of orchestral music, there are people chanting "Go Broly" and "Go Ita." Like, that sounds stupid, but blended into the fight scene and blended into the orchestral music and meshed with all the colors, it somehow works. Like,
it does. This whole movie should be a cacophony, but it works. Like, I think the way it works for me, Alex, is that it reminds me of like a fighting game, like Super Smash Brothers. It feels like they just completely lean into the fact that this movie is stupid, and they embrace that, and you just go along with the ride. John, did you like this music too? Like, did you feel like this like chanting was like really hype worthy too?
It did. It actually did, and it worked. It worked really well with everything, and yeah, it really is hype worthy, and it kept the mood up
Yeah, I think it was really fun, and I really liked how like there was one part, I'm sure you guys caught it, when Goku, or it happened multiple times in the movie where like 2 people are about to fight, but I think the most clearly audible part is when Goku and Broly start to fight. It like says Kakarot over Goku's head, and then Broly over Broly's head, and then they fight. Like, it's like literally like a fight announcer announcing their names before they fight, and it's really stupid, and I love that. But right after that scene is actually my favorite part visually of the entire fights. It's the part, and it's one of the weirdest bits of animation in the entire movie. It's when we get that first person shot for like 30 seconds from Broly.
Because is this like the part where you see him like kicking Goku, but you only see his foot coming from like the left corner? Like, because that part did stand out to me as like, oh, okay, well, this is interesting to insert into your long fight scene.
Yeah, it's the part when, I think I know what you're talking about in that thing. It's the part where they're flying through the air, and then Goku gets punched through a mountain, and then the camera follows him through the mountain in the hole. That's all from Broly's perspective. That's all first person.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a part where he like blocks an energy blast, and you see an arm come up out of nowhere, like, and you see, I think you do see a kick at the very beginning, like, and it's like for like 30 seconds, it's really weird, but I think it's, like, but that's the kind of stuff I want from a fight show. Personally, I want them to like experiment with like stuff like this, because it keeps you interested. Like, this is how you keep interested in a fight scene, just mix it up. Even if it doesn't, like, I don't think this is even that great, like, it's not even that like well executed, but it's interesting and keeps me engaged in it. Like, I really like it a lot. But, was there anything else you guys wanted to say about the fight scenes in general, or do you want to move on to, like, actual plot stuff, just to touch on that for real?
I will say I don't know if this counts as the fight scene or not, but I did get a kick out of them of Goku and Vegeta trying to fuse forming Gogeta. And I'm just sort of watching that because they keep screwing up all the number of times. I couldn't help think to myself, I wonder if anyone on the Steven Universe crew has watched Dragon Ball Z, because this sounds like they did. Or is that the most pointless? Or is that the most pointlessly obvious statement someone can make?
I think
yes,
they definitely
correct. I will say that was also exposure to Dragon Ball Z I had. There have been many a fan art of Connie being a weeb and watching Dragon Ball Z and making fusion dances with Steven in this style.
Wait, is she Goku or is she Vegeta?
Who knows? The point is that. Sorry.
No.
I just think the point is that this is literally this show is the literal source of fusion dance. Like, even if it's more stupid in this show, like Steven Universe definitely like it's less jokey, obviously, but fusion dance is a concept that came from this show.
Oh yeah, this is one of those observations I think you get no points for figuring it out.
Yeah, because everyone on Steven Universe is weebs. Like, there's a lot of weeb references in Steven Universe.
Oh,
but
of course.
I guess we can dig in a little bit to the plot, because I think the plot actually makes this fight scene that's really incredible like work. Like, the plot isn't like amazing. I don't think it's like the most deep thing ever, but I think it's serviceable and it actually makes you care for at least the character you're meant to care for. And so this movie opens up in the past, back when Vegeta and Goku are both babies on a planet that's going to be destroyed through xenocide from Frieza. And right before
Xenocide?
Xenocide is the extermination of an entire species.
Oh, okay.
Genocide is the murder of an entire race.
But like so the Scions are not a race; they're a species.
Saiyans are a species. Saiyans are everyone on that planet at the beginning.
Yeah. But okay, that's interesting.
That is Xenocide.
Saiyans are just humans. Like Saiyans are the humans of that planet, essentially. They control that planet. That is their planet, and most of them live there unless they're off planet, being evil warrior race people. But that's how it starts. And then we get the backstory of Broly getting sent to a nearly lifeless rock, and that's pretty much like a 30-minute segment. Like, we get to see Broly growing up, and we get to see a very little bit of this actual moment of all the Saiyans dying. But beyond that, it's really about Broly and his father Paragus, and it's not a very nice relationship between them. Like, at first, it looks like Paragus is going to be not loving, but at least it looks like he cares for his son. But as the time goes on, it becomes clear that Paragus really doesn't view his son in a loving way. And I think this works really well in the movie. It's not very subtle, or it is like a big sledgehammer for what we're supposed to get from this, but I think it works for what we're seeing here. Alex, you said you thought this worked, right? Like, you liked this?
Yeah, I enjoyed this. Well, what I'm impressed by is that this 30-minute segment of them on the planet, like, it sets up most of what you need to know about this society. Like, it's just a bunch of warlords that somehow got into the control of Frieza, and that they have a tense relationship. But this particular guy already has a sensation that they're gonna get destroyed, and so send Broly away. And there's like a whole thing between him and the king getting angry at each other. So I think that it's all set up very well. I think that there's a good emotion being given out in like the confrontation between Broly's dad and the king, and like get out of here. I guess if we're including them going to the planet, I especially love the design of the planet. I love the giant spiders.
Yeah,
they're like sucking from a spot of grass that turns out to be a giant grass beast that ends up being relevant later in the story. But like I love the design of the planet as well. Like I was especially impressed by the weird creatures going on there. So yeah, I think that this is most impressive for like it just being able for treating this as if it was an intro, right? Like I think that there are probably a bunch of anime movies out there that hope that you have followed all and they don't need to do that much explanation. But like this did enough explanation that I was able to get with it and still be like still not be distracted enough to stray away from the story that they're setting up here.
Yeah, it's a very tight intro. There's not a lot of frills here, but at the same time they throw in enough that you're interested in it. Like you care about what's happening. And John, did you appreciate this intro as well?
I did, and I think it really worked to humanize Broly, and even though he was supposed to be this really big threat to all society from King Vegeta's perspective. I thought that the way they had that element and the way how he was like this refuge, he was sent to another planet, and his dad is, not this great, like he had the shock collar on him and really thought he was like, and almost treated him almost like a subhuman almost. At least that's what I thought. I thought it was real. I thought it really added a lot of color to the fight scenes. I thought it added a lot of color to the plot and to the character, and it made him sympathetic. And I wasn't expecting that going in. I wasn't expecting like a character like Broly to be as like, for me, like almost not. I didn't want him to die in the end, basically, because I was like, he could be a really cool like character in like a future series. It could be a really cool character in this movie, and I thought it worked. I was not expecting that going in, and I'm so glad I got what I got out of that.
It's impressive that over the course of, like, this, whatever it was, the 110, 120-minute movie, like, they really paint Broly as a victim, and it works. And he's just a hulking monster at the end, but you don't want him to lose or die. Like, you want him to find safety. And I kind of question how he ends up being safe. Like, I think the wish they make at the end is really stupid. Why'd they send him to that same crappy planet? But at the same time, I'm happy that he survived. And that is stunning to me because, Alex, you probably don't know this. Broly is a character, like, maybe you do know that Broly is a character from before this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like Broly,
I did some brief research. So as I understand, he was a quote non-canon character.
Yes, he was
whatever that means in this universe. But so he was around. He
was just a character for a movie, and that in the movie he existed, but he never actually. But it was just a one-off thing, and it didn't actually. It was like it's like a what-if story for like a comic book. You know what I mean? Like it's like if all the main characters found a place. Here's the character, they fought him, but it didn't actually exist in the real canon show. And this is an actual canon version of Broly, and they redid him. But the point I'm trying to get at is, in the original incarnation of Broly, he had none of this backstory. He was not nearly this interesting. And they made this backstory from the ground up, and it is so good. Because I'm not sure if this movie even works without the 30-minute intro here. Like, it just works so well, because you care about Broly by the time it's time to fight.
Well, yeah, like, what is the alternative to not doing this? Like, do you just start at the present day with Goku?
Yeah, that's what they did. That's what they did in the original movie. They just started in present day, and they had a couple flashbacks, but it was like, Paragus still wanted to kill Vegeta, but it just, and Broly's just is like a rage machine, and they just kill him. That's how the movie ends. They just kill Broly. And
it's definitely a strong decision to start off with this setup, because I do think that it's necessary for you to care about big hulking man getting beaten up later in the movie.
But it works. You do care about him. Like,
exactly. Like it works, and it's a good decision that they ended up doing that.
And it's surprising because like the actual thing that's wrong is like it's a shockingly brutal depiction of like an abusive father-son relationship. And I think that's actually what they're going for. Like, and I was not expecting that from Dragon Ball. A abusive relationship portrayed in this way. And that the dad is, sorry, go ahead.
And it's not only a deep relationship, it's also a sympathetic villain, which I, from what I remember, I don't remember any sympathy toward any villain in any DBZ series I saw.
Yeah.
Like, sort of, but.
I can't think of any. Like, maybe, like, there's like, even if the show is trying to get me to be sympathetic, it's not usually successful. Like, this is actually successful at it, because Broly is, he's just a victim here. He is. His dad pretty much messed him up as a kid, and hurt him over and over again until we got to this point. This is, it's really surprising how well this works for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you were leading into this, but I think another big part is once we skip to present day, first we see Goku and Vegeta, but then we see like Broly in present day, and you see other people like opening him up to like, hey, this is wrong. Like, why are you dealing with this? And then like him telling the stories of his past, especially like the moment where he's like, I trained with the big green fur beast, and but my dad didn't like that, and so he shot off his ear, and I wasn't able to have a friend anymore. Like, the way it's delivered is so sad, and it's like, But also, like, you get why he might be the way he is now because his dad made bad decisions for him. And also, like, just overall with this movie, like, I think you mentioned, like, when we were opening that you were introducing this as kind of a toxic masculinity thing. But I think that also, like, this kind of, at least in the case of Broly, like, it kind of sets up like, hey, sometimes you got to think about like how the people are brought up, and then later at the end, it's like, hey, these people can change, but you need to like help them notice that the situation they're in is wrong and that they don't need that this isn't the correct way to be letting out your anger at how you were raised, sort of thing. So like I think that even if this anime does not have the reputation of being progressive, but I think in a low key way this movie is kind of progressive.
Yeah,
like because not just Broly, but also with Vegeta, we also have that theme of when they're doing the fusion dance. Goku is like, hey, suck up your pride. Like, we got to do this thing. And, like, he's being classic macho, like, no, I don't want to do it. But, like, he gets over himself. So, like, I think that's the general theme of this movie. It was kind of surprising considering, like, I was vaguely aware of, like, complaints along those lines. But I think that this movie does a good job of, like, showing a more progressive side of things in that regard.
And I do think like that even goes into like through like Frieza, because he's shown like Frieza's a bad person, but he's a petty masculine character who and who's portraying a very feminine type of petty. You know what I mean? He just wants to be taller. And I think that's kind of like I think a lot of these male characters in this movie are very non-traditionally masculine. And it's weird to me.
Mm-hmm. I was actually going to ask, like, also Goku, like, I don't know if this is how he's normally portrayed, but it's interesting how, like, you know, how much softer he is portrayed compared to Vegeta, who's like the macho side of things. But I find that an interesting dynamic, and that eventually they work together regardless. And like he's the one to reach out at the end to Broly and be like, hey, well, I'm here to help you out, like even if we fought, sort of thing. And like that felt very sweet. And if that's how Goku is normally portrayed, like that's actually a kind of a nice version of a protagonist that I would be happy to follow along.
Yeah, that's generally how Goku is. He's some iterations, like I'd say that Goku's usually like that, Alex, but sometimes he's not in a cast that supports that kind of character well.
Right, yeah.
Like sometimes Vegeta isn't with him. I think Goku's character really shines when Vegeta's there to like be his foil, but a lot of the times he's not there with Vegeta, and and he's forced to be as a character the person that fights the bad guy. You know what I mean? Sorry, go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, like, when Goku's with like Vegeta as well, it's like I think it allows the character to be a little bit more lighter, a little bit more looser. Yeah. And I think Gerald just a lot friendlier, because like there are moments when Goku is just like a real like sort of hard, ready to fight kind of guy. And then there's the times, like, even in the past series when he has, like, was it Gohan and Chi-Chi, he loosens up a little bit. He's a lot more outgoing. He's a lot more friendly. And I liked when it's, like, that sort of balance and contrast, because if it was just all guys with, like, the same facial expression and the same sort of tense muscles, it would get boring really quickly. You need to have that light kind of character, and Goku serves that role in this movie extremely well.
Yeah, he does. And I think the perfect, like the best moment of that in this movie is when Goku is leading Broly through the lava pits, and he like flies up and he goes like, all yours, Frieza. Like he like leads Broly to Frieza. Like I think that's a really funny moment.
Yeah.
And I think only Goku's character could have really paid that off. Like he just, it plays off really well, because Frieza's a bad dude and Goku's just kind of playing around with it, and it works really well. I think that's a really funny moment. But before we lead off, I want to touch on something really quick, Alex, because you kind of touched on it with the scene where they're talking to Broly about his dad. And I think actually the most progressive part of that scene, progressive might be the wrong word, but the most like aware part of that scene is when Broly says, "Hey, he's still my dad." Like he can't say anything bad about his dad because he thinks it's right. Like he is the victim in so many ways that he can't. It's been going on so long that he thinks he's supposed to still be there. He thinks it's right that his dad is doing that. And I think that's the part of the movie that really tries to hammer in home that, like, yeah, Broly is a child who needs help. And I really loved that part of this scene with him. And I think without that line, I wouldn't have loved it as much, really.
Yeah, that is like another symptom of abuse that that gets expressed there. Like, hey, like even if I know the things are wrong, but the person who's doing them, like, he's still my blood, so I have to accept that. And he raised me and protected me, and so like, yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, I think that's also an added detail that helps fill out his character even more.
Yeah, I think it really hammers home. Like, I think, without a couple of the little parts of these scenes, like, I think this doesn't always come off as abusive if you don't have these little moments. Like, they really went out of their way to have these little dialogue moments and make it clear, like, yes, this is an abusive relationship. We want you as the audience to acknowledge that. And they could have easily just cut those out, and it could have just been like, oh, they're not really going to go into this is an abusive relationship? I guess not. But they really do dive into it, and they comment on that this is bad, and I find that interesting. I think my least favorite part of the movie, and I'm feel free to disagree with me, I think my least favorite part of the movie is that the Paragus stuff just resolves kind of all of a sudden. Like, Paragus just gets killed by Frieza, and I would have liked Paragus to either be alive or Broly to acknowledge Paragus, but, like, Paragus is just pushed to the side, and then Broly is free. And that's good for his character. I'm happy that he doesn't have Paragus in his life anymore, but narratively, I feel a little... It feels like they wasted a narrative option here with killing Paragus, personally.
I will say that moment is also, like, half played as a joke, because then Frieza later is like, oh, look, stray blast.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I get the complaint that it doesn't fully fit the story, but I think that the joke works enough that I can justify it being there. So, like, but I get your point that, like, if the beginning of the movie is treating this seriously, then you'd hope that it gets resolved seriously. But, I mean, it's also like it's happening in the middle of this giant fight sequence. So also, I don't know if there's room for that to breathe if you wanted to go that direction in that moment. So it's definitely a valid complaint, but I think that I didn't have as much of a problem with it because I think the execution of the half joking, half pushing Broly into off the deep end, like, all that works in the context of the fight sequence that's going on.
Right, yeah. But I agree with Alex on that one. It did push the fight sequence a little bit. I was a little, but at the same time, I did forget that Paragus was kind of in the movie at a lot of points, though. Yeah. I feel like because once the action got going, you start, like, the little side bits they were often so quick, and that you were like, what happened? Oh, never mind. Back to this. Like, it's one of those moments where, like, the main event is so, like, captures so much of the attention that the peripheral stuff tends to be a little bit lost if you're just coming in for, like, a quick, like, 20-second shot and all that.
Yeah, and I get that. I think both of you, I completely get your argument, and I think that my being upset with Paragus dying only comes up now that I'm, like, a week past originally seeing the movie. Like, right after the movie, like, I was just completely on board with it. Like, I loved this fight scene. Like, I was really having fun with it, even the part where Paragus died. And now, coming off of it, I'm just now sitting here going, like, okay, how can we follow up on this movie? Well, Paragus is dead. It's a little bit more difficult to follow up on Broly's character in an interesting narrative way now because Paragus is already dead. But
and it kind of felt like a cheat code almost. It's like I need to get this character more powerful. He responds to emotions. I'm going to kill his father. Boom.
Yeah, and that's what it was. And also, Alex, in case you don't know, that scene specifically was a reference to, in the original Dragon Ball Z show, Frieza killed Goku's best friend, and that triggered Goku into going Super Saiyan the first time.
Okay.
But Frieza wasn't trying to do that the first time. This time he was doing it he was killed. If you know, I'm not sure, because that's right after he did that, Broly's hair actually goes gold for the first time after that.
But, I definitely remember that, like, that, like, sets him off, and, like, you get, like, another, like, close up of him, like, just going all out. So yeah, that was intense.
and we got those awesome, like, circles, like those circles that come out from Broly, like, causing, like, purple and dark and, like, weird lavender colors to cover the entire landscape. Like, those are, like, really iconic for Broly, like these circle energy blast things. I had a lot of fun with the movie. Is there anything? I guess we can start to wrap up, is there anything you guys anything we didn't touch on?
Look, it's a sin that we've gone in almost an entire podcast we have not mentioned Sheila. Like she's great.
Oh, okay. Like, you want to talk about Sheila? Okay.
Yeah,
I guess we can talk about the one woman in the entire movie, really, besides Bulma.
That's kind of sad because Bulma is kind of a caricature, but like Sheila is great. She's bad. And she's got good rapport with the old guy. I don't know what the old guy's name is, but like I love their banter going on. And like she treats Broly so well, and then also the ending sequence of like them going to meet him and like help him out, and but also like still being a little skeptical of Goku. Like it all works so well, and I think that Sheila is a great piece of this movie. The ending part where like she's the one who uses the Dragon Balls, like I get that might seem stupid in hindsight, but also like I was so taken by their relationship in the beginning of the movie that I was like, yeah, go, yeah, do it. like this is what you want to go for it. So like I think that maybe because of the fact that this is focused on Broly and their fight sequence, like she kind of gets pushed aside for like a big chunk of the movie. But I think that her incorporation in the first third of the movie is really great. So Chilai, go you.
Right. Yeah. And she yeah, I definitely agree. And I think in place of not having Paragus around, I do like the fact that Chilai, the old guy who forgot what his name was, and Limo and Broly on that planet with all the stuff that Goku gave them at the end, the beans, the house, the food and all that. I feel like that'd be a great setup. I feel like that'd be a great setup in place of that though too, because they had that great relationship in the beginning, and it'd be interesting, and that'd be like a cool little cutaway where you see them, living on this planet with, and obviously more comfortable situations. Goku pops up to visit, and that could be like a really cool character dynamic going forward because they almost act like a family toward the end.
Yeah, they do. It definitely feels almost, what I felt from it was very, Tarzan, like Tarzan and Jane for Chilai. Like, that feel like kind of the same strings they were pulling there. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like you go back to tropes for a reason. Tropes work. But I did like Chilai a lot too. Chilai was probably the best part of the second act, the part in the present before we get to the fight. Like, I really enjoyed that, her finding Broly and her helping Broly try to understand this is an abusive relationship, this isn't a good relationship for him. And then the part where she like steals the controller and gives him food. Like, I think that all has a really fun. It's fun, but also it shows a lot. It does a lot for expanding on Broly's and her character. I really like that part. But other than that, Alex, I'm sorry for offending you by not talking about Chilai, because she is great.
She was an important part of this
movie. She was. But I just think that she kind of becomes a caricature by the end of the movie, almost, kind of like Bulma, which is unfortunate. Like, we have to see more of her on the planet, but she kind of just becomes like kind of sassy woman character and at the end of it, I think. And I kind of didn't like that. But again, we only did get to see one scene with her on that planet with Broly, so maybe she isn't like, they won't write her like that anymore in the future. But, yeah, other than that, do you guys have any more final thoughts? Alex, any other thoughts?
This was a very interesting experience, and I would recommend this to people who are not normally fans of Dragon Ball, or they're generally new to anime. I think that this is, I'm speaking from a place of not really being that informed, but it seems to me like a good introduction to what the best of anime fight shows could be, and like it gives you a good standard to start off your anime watching career with. So like, I think that as with many shows, like characterization is a huge deal, and I think that this movie does a great job in doing the requisite work to make the characters interesting before getting to the fight sequence. Yeah. So by the time you get to the fight sequence, you're all in. You understand who's on both sides, and you get why the ending is that meaningful to the point of the final shot. I don't think we mentioned the final shot of like Gogeta sending this final blue energy ball heading toward Broly just as Chilai is making her wish and Broly disappears. But like that final shot to end the fight sequence is like a perfect way to end that. So I think that from beginning to end, this is quite a trip, and it's good movie.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Alex. John, any final thoughts?
I think I'm gonna be a bit more wistful because I have to say, seeing this movie and talking about it with you guys, it made me feel like I'm 10 years old all over again, and I absolutely love that. We're three boys with microphones talking about Dragon Ball Z, and sometimes things are just really awesome like that. And I loved watching this. It gave me all the great feelings again. DBZ actually has now, they actually grew up a little bit. I thought the writing actually made it feel more adult, which is, as in like more mature writing. Like it definitely feels like it's more modern writing. But honestly, all that's missing right now is a box of Golden Grams and my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I'd be one happy little kid again.
Yeah, this I think that's really the reason that when I finished watching this movie, I came like to the Discord and was like, "Hey guys, anyone want to pod on this?" Because I watched this movie and I just had so much fun with it that I wanted to share that with somebody else. Because this movie just was so much fun, and I'm glad you both enjoyed it. I'm really glad you came on here, and I'm glad you both just had a fun time with it, because I was worried that maybe you wouldn't. We have more to discuss about what didn't work, but I'm just really glad we got to discuss that this movie was just fun for more people than just me.
And I think we've touched on the stuff that doesn't work. Like, we've been majorly positive, but like there are like tiny parts that don't really work. I think we didn't really talk about also the Goku Vegeta intro scene of them in the present day.
Yeah.
Is really weird, of like them fighting on the ocean.
Well,
and,
the reason that didn't work for you, Alex, is because what you don't know is that the background music for that part is all a callback. Like, it's all a callback to the first opening song of Dragon Ball, like the first.
Yeah, and it seems like those side characters of like the God of Hell or whatever that's on like side. It's like, oh, this must be fan service for the people who watch the show. That's fine, but like for me, I don't care what's going on here. Just get to the rest of the story. Get back to Broly. Where's Broly? Yeah. So like, there are little pieces of this movie that don't work, but overall, I think that it comes together.
Yeah. And there's also a fun little production note as well, because I think it was brought up I think I want to allude to something Alex mentioned earlier. Monica Rial is the voice of Bulma in this movie.
Yes.
She is Raquel in Genlock.
Yes, she is.
And was Sienna Khan in Ruby.
Yep. And she is. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and on a more timely note, Vic Mignogna, I think that's how you pronounce it, is the dub actor for Broly.
Yeah.
He was just fired from Ruby during this recording. So
yeah, we can acknowledge that Broly's character is good without talking about Vic Mignogna.
What was he fired for? Wait, what was his role?
We don't have to get it. Well, let's not get into it here, John. We'll talk about it later. But
he voices Crow on Ruby there.
Yes, he voiced Crow on Ruby. He was fired, but listeners can look it up on your own on Google. Yeah. Anyways, this was fun, guys. Listeners, you can find us out all the information on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Michael, aka Wazowski. And as always, thank you to our patron executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, and Hugh. Coming up soon, we have more anime. We have Promised Neverland coverage coming up this week, episode 4. I don't know if there's what else is big coming out. There's Miraculous Ladybug. I don't know if there's a big crossover between Dragon Ball Z and Miraculous Ladybug. Anything else, guys?
Craig of the Creek.
Craig of the Creek. Yeah, but we cover anime here. We cover fun stuff. Maybe we'll cover more stuff like this maybe in the future. We had so much I had a lot of fun with this. Maybe there's more if anime can produce a movie this fun again, maybe we'll cover it. But anyways, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Adios.
Take care.